Victoria!
Hello!
Victoria, tell us about the guests we've got coming to.
Oh my god, we do have an amazing lineup of guests, don't we?
We're going to have a little chat every week, right? Because we need a little bit of a help on a Friday afternoon, don't we, ladies?
My week has been fabulous.
Well, I mean, we've already been doing this for 7 minutes and it didn't go live. So we're just going to cut straight to the chase. Good morning, everybody. And, you know, it's midday. We're the Friday Club and we're here to bring a little bit of sparkle and sunshine to your Friday before the end of the week to create that water cooler moment. If you're joining us live, please do feel free to join us in the comments. And if you're catching up on the recording, then please continue to comment and we hope you enjoy the show. We're going to get straight down to it. So without further ado, Victoria is back in the studio.
I know this is so weird because we've already done this about 5 minutes
We've
ago.
already guest bagged for the last 10 minutes. We've already been chatting. I had it all set. I pressed the live. Everything looked fine.
And our poor guests have been sat waiting as well. I think without ado, maybe we should bring them on and do the word of the week and then crack on.
I think we should. So this week's guest is the lovely Aaron Patrick. So Aaron, please join us in the studio today. Hello. We are bossing live. Now we can't hear you.
Trust us to have technological issues without Ashley here. He's gonna love that, isn't he?
No, I can't hear you at all.
No. Still can't hear you, Aaron. You're muted, darling.
Now you're muted now. Let's unmute you. No, your mic is not muted. We're doing a
fantastic job.
Sounds of life.
Hi, Aaron. Hello, welcome.
How are you doing?
We've we followed the format. We did the whole video thing. We done the intro. We done we done a fab job, and nobody was there to enjoy it. So we'll just cut straight into. Go on.
As one of the only people who saw the intro, I thought it was brilliant. Absolutely, chef's kiss. That
Thank
one.
you.
The word of the week blew my mind. Like everything.
Well,
yeah,
I think we should bring that bit in now, and then.
Well, let's join you in the conversation with the word of the week. So the word of the week, as we said, is banter. So Victoria, do read us again your
the description of banter: a light-hearted exchange of teasing remarks to tease or be silly with someone. Okay, I like that. It's a bit different. Brilliant. And obviously we were just on our pre-live we were explaining the difference between banter and flanter.
Okay. Sure. So we can't ask you, Aaron, as to what the difference is because you've heard all of that. So Victoria, do share us what is the difference between banter and flanter? The difference
is flanter is flirty banter, basically, whereas banter is just a bit of laugh. And we were, as we were discussing, you know, I think banter comes around when you've got a connection with someone, be it romantically or not, where you get along and you just vibe and you have a laugh. And you know, who doesn't enjoy a bit of a laugh?
It feels like more cheeky banter, right? Like you're taking that one step further, aren't you? There's banter where you can have that little prod, and then cheeky banter where you can just go that little bit further. I like it.
and it's interesting because I've listened to all sorts of audiobooks and stuff, and one of them is What About Men? And she said one of the most staple parts of male interaction is office banter, workplace banter, friends, that kind of thing. How true would you say that the banter is the more common form of communication in the world of men, shall we say? How important is banter?
You've been the expert on all men there, Aaron.
I know. I was
you are now.
Let me think about the rest of the human. No. Honestly, I think I've had some of my best moments at work and everything where we have got that opportunity where we can have a bit of banter between colleagues, and you do feel closeness, right? You do feel like you've got that opportunity, and there's obviously the side where it goes way too far, and we're not talking about that. We're talking about the friendly and the fun and everything else. But I think, you know, it makes you feel part of the family, doesn't it? If you can trust the person you're having that banter with, that they're not going to take offense, and you know that you feel much closer, don't you? Right?
And it helps build those relationships, doesn't it? And that bond, you know, it makes it a bit lighthearted. Let's face it, you know, we're all at work to not necessarily because we enjoy what we're doing all the time. Some of us are, but not all of us. So it makes it for a bit more of an interesting day.
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely. So if anyone is able to create any content this week with the word banter or indeed flanter, then please do let us know and tag us in it so that we can support the piece of content. But we're not here to talk about banter or flanter. We're here to say hello to Aaron and learn a little bit more about what you do. So for anybody who doesn't know, would you just like to give us a very quick introduction to who you are, what you do, and talk to us about some of the decor around you as well, because it looks all very fascinating and on brand.
Well, hopefully it's on brand. Hello, everybody. My name is Aaron Patrick. Thank you so much for having me. I am a chartered accountant. So I have an accounting firm. I am also the QuickBooks chap on the internet. So I go around teaching people how to use QuickBooks to the best of its ability. I'm also a QuickBooks trainer. So I go around looking after accountants. And I'm actually the person who did the recertification. So if you've ever had to do recertification with QuickBooks, that was me that made you do that and put the exams in and everything else. And I'm also Yeah, exactly. I'm the one with the sleepless nights, unfortunately. I own an accounting firm called Boffix. So we are very much a cloud-based accounting firm and try and push the boundaries of success and cloud. And I am a podcast host as well, which goes live each and every Monday morning for Ask the Accountant. And thankfully, just come up behind me is our cool friends section. Oh, and I got one more now. I'm also a digital disruptor for 2024 as well. So hot off the press, that one.
Well done.
Very nice. Congratulations.
It's actually, obviously, I was so excited to get you on because we met a few times and we run in the same sphere, whatever you call it.
100%.
And I was thinking back to like, when did I first meet you guys? And it was probably last year, at one of the shows, you and Johan, friendly as ever, in your boiler suits, I think. Possibly going around, and obviously I was showing you earlier, I've got, here you go, your signature on the card. Mate, for those who don't know what these are, maybe you want to explain them.
So we do a podcast each and every week called Ask the Accountant, and when we were approached by some of the conferences that we were going to, we wanted to kind of give back and have an opportunity, and it actually just popped up here. We do Ask the Accountant Pit Stop podcast. So the idea there is when we're at a conference, we can get as many people in, we can actually talk to you, we can get it recorded live and get it out there, and people go to conferences and they go away with photos that they can have for their LinkedIn, or they go away taking that tangible asset, right? And we wanted them to be able to go take away, hopefully for a lot of people, their first ever experience of a podcast. So we have it all set up and we invite you down, and that's why we're wearing our boiler suits, because we want to pretend that we're part of a pit crew and we're coming in and you're coming in to have your pit stop with us, and out you go with your podcast ready to go. And we wanted to create some sort of swag for the event, or something that while we're there in these activation zones and people are coming over to us, what can they take away that reminds them? So we came up with the top trumps idea. And the idea is we've gone through people in the industry, people who've been on our podcast before, on our cool friends. And we basically wanted to create them and immortalize them as a top trump card. I'll be honest, it's become a bit of a, how do I get a top trump card now? And we're trying to create criteria to make sure we can appease everyone. We've got like shinies now, so we've got the chrome versions on them. They're all shiny.
I've got one shiny.
Have you got the apron gold? I assume.
I have got the apron gold. So I've got 13 of them. And as you know, I sent you a photo before. I've got them all above my whiteboard in the office, like a proper true fangirl.
And that's what we want, right? We want people to go out there and want to collect them, want to swap them, because it's all random which ones you get collected when you come and collect them from the stand and everything else. We've yet to have someone actually play top trumps with them yet, but that's the goal, right? Like, go out there.
Well, that's the thing. How do I get the rest of them? Because I've got 13. I need to complete the pack now.
Get the whole set, right?
How many are in the set? I just have to ask this question now.
42 now. 42 in the set.
It'll be 44
so we go.
if you include us.
Yeah, honestly, we are looking to get as many people, and I think especially the podcast scene at the moment in our industry. Like, if we can get all the podcasters and get them as a top trumps, I think we're not fighting each other. Like, we are all helping one another kind of grow and everything else. So 100% we want digital disruptors, we want you guys, we want Rachel's new one, we want all of them to come out there and kind of bring on. But yeah, the idea is you come along, you collect them, and what we really want to do is people then to go out and find the people on the show floor and go up, pass the card over and get him signed. Exactly. And there's a nice ego boost that happens there when it goes and gets them signed. I think you might have got Lizzie's signed as well, producer Lizzie.
6 of mine are signed out of the 13.
6 of them. And I've heard on the black market they're worth at least £2,000 each. So
Well, if you,
for the future.
if you can find someone who will give me 2,000, I might be persuaded to part.
So yeah,
But
that's
I do think
our little
you guys
merch.
are doing fantastic stuff with it and raising awareness. And also, I think we were discussing before the show, the finance world actually isn't as big as you think, the community out there. And one of the things I've loved with the shows is actually going and getting to meet your peers and the people that you look up to and connect and engage with. Obviously I always come and see you guys on your stand at the events. That's how I met Ashley face to face, was actually at one of these shows,
Really? Amazing.
And Crazy Me sort of went up to him and I got an idea, and then that's how the Friday Club came about. But yeah, it's really nice that it's not the stuffy, boring world that people expect finance to be.
Yeah, and I think
it makes people really relatable as well.
100%. And I think you saying there about you going up to Ashley, and that's where this started from. Well, me and Johan met at one of the events and we had a beer and we went, should we start a podcast? Okay, let's start a podcast. And that's where literally this is how it all started. It was going to an event. Yes, you can go and see some amazing speakers, and there are brilliant speakers at these events. Yes, you can go to all the vendors and see all the amazing vendors and all the new tech and all the new solutions. But honestly, like the bit that I've always gotten the most out of those events is by talking to the peers, like you said, like talking to one another, finding out what software someone's using, or finding out how that particular firm has got over that issue that they may have had. Like those communicate, that talking to one another is so important. And I think in our industry, it's only really started to happen in the last 5 or so years. Prior to that, we're all holding on to all of our knowledge. We don't want to give that away. Why should we give any of this away? Like that's our knowledge. Keep it there. Now we've definitely opened up a lot more. And we're seeing so much coming out of, so much positivity out of it. I still think there's a long way to go in that place. But yeah, if we could continue doing what we're doing, opening up more, giving up that knowledge, like passing that knowledge around, I think everyone's going to be a winner from it.
You think prior to a year or two back, like everyone's on about AM and stuff, and then now obviously Johan he couldn't make it today. He's come in with Client Engager, which is a fantastic product. It's budget friendly, and I am forever telling people about it and trying to get them to sign up to it, who are in our industry, because I think it works really nicely. And that's developed rather than by a big firm, it's being developed by people who are in the industry who have an understanding of it. And it's stuff like that you wouldn't have necessarily been aware of or had knowledge of if you didn't have the events and that engagement and those relationships building.
100%. And I think the nice thing about these softwares that are being popped up are they're not just they're built by people who use the product, but they're actually, it's community based. There's actually a voting system in the back end of it of what solution do you want next. Do you need it to, automatically send out signatures, or do you want to so and so? And then you go in and you vote, and it's the community that decides what's next can be built, what integration we're going to go for. And I think that's a really nice, refreshing look at the industry, because at the end of the day, we're the ones that know what our pain points are. We're the ones that understand that what we need to get us to be able to help our clients more. So us having a say, I think, is a really positive part for the industry.
So tell me where the QuickBooks chap tag came from.
So this is the perfect example of where if you're going out there and you want to start thinking about personal branding, then definitely start thinking about the name of it, because I think that's really important. I started off as Apple Core Productions, and I was going around telling people how to use QuickBooks and where that came from and everything else. And funnily enough, it flatlined and no one subscribed and no one understood. And what's Apple Core Productions? And it was a whole thing that came through there. And then just after COVID, I switched that over to Aaron Patrick, the QuickBooks chap, and suddenly the trajectory completely went the way you can imagine, right? Because there was no one out there really giving away the details of how to use QuickBooks and going through what the new stuff was. And I love that. That's my favorite bit. I love finding, logging into QuickBooks or any software and there's a new button. What's that button do? How does that button work? So I was just recording myself live, reacting to how these things, like how these new buttons work, what happens and everything else. And then over time, I got the opportunity to get more and more in with QuickBooks. So I know like the people behind building some of the solutions out there. I get invited to the Accounting Council. I'm a trainer for QuickBooks. I get all that kind of insight. So basically I'm using that knowledge and trying to have a platform to push it out there. And that's one of the reasons I got the Digital Disruptor Award. It's, you know, that opportunity to understand what QuickBooks can do and how it goes there. And we're trying to, with Ask the Accountant as a network, we're trying to now expand that. So can we find a Xero expert? Can we find a Sage expert? Can we find those ones as well? So we can just get that knowledge out there. And what I love the most about it is the ability to be involved in those betas and understanding how that's going to be and give that feedback. I know QuickBooks themselves hate it when I do a video because there's going to be criticisms there. It's not always going to be roses, right? But at least then those criticisms then hopefully can be looked at and then fixed. And we all benefit from that, right? If we can get software that works flawlessly or at least is going in the right direction, it's better for everyone. So yeah, that's where I'm trying to push it. And the QuickBooks chat is just part of my personal branding to try and give myself some differentiation for everyone else out there.
So I'm not sure on the stats now, but I've run my business for many years, but I only went full-time in 2019. And at the time, I was looking, because I use QuickBooks, I use Xero, Sage, NetSuite, Free Agent, you know, as a bookkeeper, depending on the client, I used a good selection of them. I started with Sage to begin with. And so, yeah, to me, come
on.
I can remember looking and looking at Google, at the stats for the different phrase, and it was something like QuickBooks was getting 65,000 hits a month on Google compared to something like 28,000, I think it was, for Xero at the time, just because of their marketing and how things were going. So I don't know what the stats are now, but they were very strong. You know, you're talking 2019, so 5 years ago, they were doing really well with the SEO stuff and the search results.
Yeah, they've definitely swapped over in terms of popularity now. Xero is I think at one point it was 1 in 5 was Xero as opposed to QuickBooks. So there was definitely, Xero did well in kind of getting their core market, and they were really kind of, this is what we've aimed at and this is what we're going to build a solution for. Whereas QuickBooks has definitely gone for that. There's a SKU out there for every type of business, from your smallest of small to your SMEs to your mid-market. Like, there is a solution for everyone. And I think that's kind of maybe hurt them a little bit in terms of popularity. But I think looking forward, when you start looking at AI and you start looking at MailChimp that they've acquired and other acquisitions they've made, it definitely does look like it's going to be a much more ecosystem approach. And I think that's what it's going for. So for me, it's, where can that take us? Like, how can that help us as accountants and bookkeepers? And how can we get those integrations in? And how can we push them to maybe look at other integrations and look at other bits that can help us? Because ultimately, all we want to do is be able to serve our clients in the best possible way, right? So if we can get the right software to do that, then that's the way. And I was looking at what their latest release, which is called Sole Trader, which is really aimed at the smallest of small clients. And we timed it. We did a video on it of, you could literally connect a bank or subscribe to the Sole Trader, connect your bank account, let AI do its job, and you can be told what your tax return and your tax position is going to be within 3 minutes. Like, that's where we want to get to, right? Yeah. Like, let's take away our gatekeeping all this, and let's give that power back to the user so that they can find out what their tax position is going to be, like, be in a better financial position, be able to build their business better. And then we can come along and then help them actually plan ahead and push ahead. And then, bookkeepers of the world can go in there and actually clean up the mess that they've probably made.
3 minutes, including importing their TB. But that's trial balance for non-accounting.
Yeah. So this is literally like the simplest of clients that don't have a TB. This is like, you've got a gig mentality or eBay or an eBay store or something like that. You're just connecting your bank account. It'll go through, read all the bank account transactions, and then using AI to put it there.
I think one of the things I find as a bookkeeper, which can be frustrating, is the lack of consistency with the different providers like eBay, Stripe, WooCommerce, etc. If there was more consistency in terms of like being able to import the transactions into the various softwares, there's not always, like, I've got one client where I'm logging into Stripe trying to find the transactions records that I need, and then a different type on Dojo and Go Cardless and all those different providers. It would be nice if there was a little bit more consistency with some of that stuff, I think. And
100%.
maybe that's something that we, as people in the industry, something we can develop with them.
Yeah, and we need to be shouting it. I was talking to Whatnot, which is like the new eBay, if you like, that were coming through and everything else, and they haven't even considered taxes and how to put tax return in, because that was never one of their issues. Like they just want to build the best product they can that's going to sell the most and get the products moving quicker and everything else. And then when I approached them and says, well, how are we going to get the data out for a tax return? They went, oh, I hadn't thought about that yet. So yeah, we need to be making, as an industry, we need to be talking about it more.
Sometimes that can be the issue with sorry, we're going off on a tangent there, Odessa, but sometimes that can be an issue with things that I've worked with in a particular industry before, where they had software that was built for that industry and the finance was just a bolt-on option, and it was so clunky, and it was so awkward to use because it was an afterthought. Whereas actually, if more people thought of the finance in the initial development, then it would work and run a lot nicer.
Yeah, we almost need open banking, but for open e-commerce or whatever it's going to be called, right? And we need that to be a standard going forward.
Yeah. So I think we go quite far into it, but I think for lots of people who maybe aren't as familiar with QuickBooks as maybe they are with some of the other bigger brands, what would you say to people are the main benefits of using this software above others? I know we don't like to be competitive, and I know that there are different software for different size businesses and preferences and stuff like that. But in your mind, you pledge such an allegiance to the brand, and you have such a belief behind it, which comes through in everything that you talk about. And it's wonderful to have a passion and really believe in the product that you're talking about and giving visibility to. So for you, who would you say is best suited to using it? What would you say are the best parts of it? And how would you recommend getting the best out of it?
Yeah, so I think for me, I mean, full transparency, my firm, with 750 odd clients, we do have people on other platforms. Majority, well over 80% on QuickBooks, but we still have Xero, Free Agent, Sage, and everything else that goes with it.
Yeah.
But the reason we push the QuickBooks element more is because for us, we feel like QuickBooks gives them that ability to just be able to get the data in. A lot of the other software, they're quite restrictive on, say you're setting up a business and you want to start doing your own bookkeeping, for example. You can do the bookkeeping, but you have to know all the little intricacies to make that single posting. So, for example, if you received some income from eBay, for example, you're going to have to be very precise on where that's going to go. If you paid on some telephone costs, you're going to be very precise on how that works. And they're done for a reason, so that you can't make any mistakes. And, you know, when it's in, it should be in properly. That's how a lot of the other software are done. With QuickBooks, it opens up a little bit more for you, where you can just get the data in there, but it gives us as accountants and bookkeepers so many more tools to go in there and clean it up and to tidy it up and to get it clean and actually do a little thing called reconciling a bank, which means that you agree that one bank account is agreed to what the actual bank account is. And I think it's just a different approach. And what I like about that is it opens up far more opportunities for it to be available to be adapted for far different businesses. As Victoria said there, there's problems when the finance is an afterthought and the finance is a problem and you're having to put that. At least with QuickBooks, we've got loads of ways in which we can get data in, and then we can use fantastic tools within the product to clean it up and get it ready. It's a little bit of a different approach, and I think a lot of people, some people like it that way, some people don't. Some people like to get it right first time, get it in there, feel comfortable and confident that it's there and it's right. Some people are happy to, let's just get the data in, let's extract what we can out of it, and if we need to, let's find someone to clean it up. And your point about
one of my pet peeves with eBay, for example, is when someone will see eBay money come into the bank account and they just post it to sales, because
and they leave it.
Because you've made the sale on eBay take their fees, and then what hits your bank account is what's left after the fees. So really, you should have a separate account that records your sales minus the fees. Otherwise, you're not accounting for your bank fees. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And in the Xero world, it will be very much, you have to get that right each time. So before you make the post, and you kind of got to get it all right before it's there. In the QuickBooks world, you can put it to a control account and deal with it later, or let someone else deal with it for you. And it's just that mentality. And what's right or wrong is dependent on the person. It depends on their kind of their risk factor, if you like, and how they want to perceive kind of getting the information in. But I'm much more of a let's get as much data in as possible. Then let's use, the experts of the world to go in there and clean it up, and then we can get the right data at the end. And definitely from what we're trying to do in our practice, where we want to push cash flow forecasting, we want to push all the sort of stuff of getting real-time information, then we need to find ways to get the data in quicker. And that's what QuickBooks is definitely there to do. When it comes to resourcing, then you've got certification. We can't tell anyone more that go out there and do recertification and get you certified and get QuickBooks badges and all that sort of stuff. And then there's a little channel called Aaron Patrick, the QuickBooks chat, that kind of helps you get the most out of QuickBooks as well.
Sounds familiar. So you mentioned that you do the podcast. What was the purpose of having a podcast? And I know it came about as these beautiful collaborative pieces. What was the purpose of it? And how have you seen that grow with the kind of guests that you've been able to enjoy speaking to?
So we always felt like the industry didn't have enough people kind of collaborating and talking, especially when we first started it. And we wanted to bring those barriers down. One of our favorite parts about the podcast is we have a spin-off called We Have Cool Friends, and just pops up behind me as soon as I say it, as if by magic. And the idea there is that we know so many people in the industry that are amazing, who are changing the industry for the better. And we want to talk to those, and we want to get them in front of a camera, and we want to get and probe them and let them tell their story. And that was kind of the premise of how can we give back to the community? How can we bring more people in and keep people accountable? We'll do news sections on our podcast, and if we feel like they've updated the software for XYZ, but they've ignored the bit that people want, we want to keep them accountable and bring it out there. So it was more passion than anything else that brought us to start the podcast, because it's like, look, we can sit here and we can have a few beers and maybe moan about XYZ, but we're just moaning to each other, right? Or into this small little ecosystem here. But at least with the podcast, we can moan from time to time, but hopefully we're going to moan to try and get some action out of it, so just bring it there. And also gives us a chance to celebrate all the wins and all the pluses. We're in award seasons at the moment, so one of our favorite bits about the podcast is going, well, let's celebrate who did win and who almost won, and and talk about those sort of things. So it is our opportunity to give back to the community. The community's done so much, the industry's done so much for us, so the podcast is there to kind of celebrate that and give an opportunity for people to be involved. And things like the top trump cards gives an opportunity to kind of give back in those sort of ways, and people get so excited about having a top trump and having an option to be on there, and it just helps kind of push our message out there.
Amazing. It's brilliant. And so if you had to, putting you absolutely on the spot right now, if you had to say one of your favorite episodes that you ever recorded, you can give it to a top 3 if you like. Which would you say that they were?
I think for me, definitely, there's definitely 2 that will always come to mind. So from the main show, which is where we go live 8:30 in the morning and everything else, I'll always remember when we were on location after one of the QuickBooks events. So we were in a hotel room, and it, on the screen it looks fine. We're just sat there talking to one another, but in the background we've got producer Lizzie. Literally all the equipment was on a bed, and she's kind of hovering on this bed, pressing buttons and all that. And from a HR point of view, it's actually my employee, so it's probably not the best thing in the world. So,
Brilliant.
Asking her to come and film 2 men in a hotel room, but it was one of those moments where we made it work. From a technology point of view, from a everything point of view, we were able to talk about how impactful that event was and the announcements that were made and have that. And I'll always remember not just doing what we're doing now. And it's not StreamYard where we're kind of talking virtually, but we're in the same room. We were talking about it, figuring out the problems. There were issues all the way through. There was things went down. Cameras were turning off, all sorts of things, but we managed to pull through and get that working. So that's my main one. And then when it comes to the cool friends, we've had so many amazing ones, but there's a guy in our industry called Andrew Van Der Beek, who's over from Australia, and he came over for a show. I think he was invited by the show to speak on the stage, but we're like, look, you were here, let's grab you, and we put
Nice.
spoke. And it was 2 hours in Brewdog, just talking and and just keep going and it was amazing. 2-parter, and we had to physically end it because we ran out of memory on the memory cards, as opposed to what to say. Yes. So we could have carried on for another
That's
2 hours easily.
fantastic.
So yeah, it was
That's
brilliant,
absolutely
amazing,
fantastic.
amazing experience, and yeah, and I think that's what it is. Now we're so proud of those moments,
Yeah.
and go out, and I think I'm sorry to kind of bring a third one and kind of make it
I
worse.
did up to 3. You're good.
Exactly, but I think concept comes to or one of our brands. So we do this thing called the grid walk. So Formula One's a big passion of both mine and Joanne. So we that's where the pit stop came from. And the grid walk is the idea that we get to grab go before the conference opens. So we go to these conferences, we go before that, and we walk around before they open to the public, and we're recording people and we're interviewing people on the kind of grid walk before it goes live, and looking at the problems, looking at the issues, looking at how the teams made these amazing things. And we went to do Ashley once, and he got his guitar out and he played his theme tune. And yeah, it was brilliant. I mean, there's definitely a meme there of me awkwardly dancing to his guitar, but it was such a fun time, and just asking him like, how did he get this set up, and you know, that amazing stage that he has and all that sort of stuff, like getting into the whites of the eyes before it goes live. It was just an amazing experience. And I think it's just showing that backstage and behind the scenes of these conferences, how they're built, how people engage with them, how people get set up. And yeah, it's brilliant. And those are the bits that we're really privileged to get. And it's because of the pod that we're able to get those kind of access to those sort of areas.
It sounds phenomenal, the kind of community that you're creating and the kind of ways that you're bringing people together on your industry level, but also as individuals, as friends, as acquaintances, as people who share the same interests, and showing that there's a lot of unity in the business world when you're talking about the subject of money and finance and all the things that every business owner needs to know. Victoria has just come back, so we'll bring her back into the studio.
Hello, I have no idea what happened there. My mic and camera just decided to switch themselves off. I was like, I didn't touch anything.
It's got the Friday feeling.
or Ashley's like, look, you're going to make sure when I'm back that you're going to remember I'm back, because
I think it feels like that. We've had no end of technical issues today, but we are still here and we're still having fun and we're having amazing conversations with you, and hopefully you know, our listeners are enjoying that. So that's the main point of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So for you, where does it, you've obviously got so many strings to your bow. There's lots of things now that you're doing to kind of keep, I suppose for you it's variety, it's keeping things fresh. How do you see that enthusiasm, that passion kind of spilling into other projects? Where do you see things expanding for you guys in the future?
So my dream is always to make a network. Like Ask the Accountant is never just me and Joanne. It's how do we make this into a network, you know, a podcasting network or video casting it, whatever you want to call it. So what my passion is to just find some of the amazing people in the industry, grab them and give them a platform to tell everyone, right? Like talk about it, and how StreamYard works we can do, you know, putting the pod out there we can do, but actually they're the ones with the bits that people want to listen to, right? Let's have that Sage podcast. Let's have that Zero podcast. Let's have those, you know, let's have conversations. We're doing a video next week after Accounting Excellence, where it's just on VR. Like, is it a fad or is it real? You know, the person we've got involved is completely nomad. Like her accounting bookkeeping practice is completely nomad. So actually to her, VR is really important, and having that connection and everything else. But is it a fad, or can it actually work? Like putting on that mask and being in this world, is that ever going to actually be anything other than just a, you know, this very expensive hobby at the moment? Or if we keep actually doing stuff with it and actually progressing with it, can we make it into something that and that's what I want to try and do, like get the industry into those next steps. And
it's like AI, isn't it? You know,
100%.
You think 2 years ago there was no talk of AI within our industry, whereas now it's discussed all the time and used in all sorts of things. I mean, I use AI every day, ChatGPT or Claude, you know, for various different reasons. But there's other AIs, you know, and even to the point that some of the big software firms within our industry are now bringing AI in as well.
100%. And And you can go to these like events and you can listen to a talk on AI, and they're great. Like, and there's some really passionate people out there talking about the benefits of AI. But practically, no one's really still showing that. And again, from our platform, we can show that if you use Microsoft Copilot and use the finance section of it, you can take a general ledger from any software out there, QuickBooks, Xero, whatever, take a bank statement, and you can reconcile the two in seconds. And it can then using that, that's where we want to be showcasing where AI can be used, right? Like those practical elements where it can help us from a day to day. And then we can do more for our clients because we're not sat there spending 2.5 hours reconciling a bank. We can do it in 2.5 minutes instead. You know, that's where the benefits we want to show people so that we can make the positive impacts.
So I have a question for you. Where will we see you next year?
Where was that? Sorry.
Yeah, where can we see you next year?
Okay.
Obviously, I know you guys from Accountex and other shows. So you know, what's coming up for you next year? Where can we see you?
So Labs has already been confirmed. So that's Engage's, Client Engage's own conference. So we're going to be at Labs. We're going to be there. We're going to be enjoying in Liverpool in February. Accountex South, we're already in talks with Caroline and the team to go back down there and do the podcasting and make sure that we can invite everyone from the industry to come along and sit down with us and podcast with us as much as people can and get that content out there. Accountex Manchester as well is what we want to do. Festival Accounting and Bookkeeping in Birmingham. That's another one we did last year. I'd love to be invited back again.
I saw you.
Yeah, and then there's the QuickBooks roadshows, Xero roadshows. You know, we don't want to overcommit to for ourselves, right? But we want to be as many of these as we can. ICB Summit we're doing this year as well. So we've not even finished the conference season yet this year. We've still got another couple to go. So yeah, we want to be as many as we possibly can because we want to give that opportunity for people to come and grab a card, like grab the Top Trumps card, but also more importantly, give them an opportunity to talk. Like even if they've already been on the pod before, there's so much happened within this industry. Let's talk about it. Let's sit down.
So will we see an Ask the Accountant show?
I mean, the QuickBooks Labs, Engager Labs is probably the closest we'll get at the moment, but we definitely want to think about it. I mean, Digital Disruptors have done an amazing thing. That their last show that they did was absolutely amazing. It definitely got the cogs ticking for us of where we can take it and everything else. But at the moment, I'm just happy to be involved in the shows that are out there and push it on. But yeah, never say never.
Exciting. Fantastic. Well, it has been absolutely lovely to spend this time with you, Aaron. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your insights. Before we go, could you give maybe the listeners today and anyone who's catching up later on, can you give them 3 reasons why they need to consider using some kind of software? Because I know there are still business owners out there doing things on Excel spreadsheets. So maybe 3 reasons why they should be using it, or 3 ways that they can choose the best software for them.
Awesome question. So I'm going to leave the third one till last because it is the cop-out one, but the first 2 are reasons, right? So the first reason is definitely for efficiency and for making sure that you can actually be on top of your numbers, right? It's a cliche statement, but actually, you know, if you're just using Excel or you're just using Word, you're just going through your bank statement, it's really difficult as a small business to understand what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. But the best thing about these softwares is you connect your bank account up, get the information in there, and then if you use the information that's in there for looking at your, you know, cash flow forecasting, or you're looking at your profit and loss, or you're looking through that actual how your business is doing, it's so impactful for a business. You know, where are you spending that money? How is that money being spent? And what's the tax consequences going to be going forward? And how much money do you have to take on your next employee? So getting information into software is so important from that point of view. You get it access on your mobile, so you can constantly have the data there. The second reason I would say is because at the moment there's so many integrations that are really, really powerful. Just mentioned about eBay, connecting eBay to it. That's you know, getting that data in there. If you've got an EPOS solution, so if you're a business that has a electronic point of sale, so you're taking money in there, get that information in there. Let's use that information. Let's extract that information. And I know people like QuickBooks are really looking at, well, what else outside of finance can we help? So that's where I'm really excited for things like MailChimp integration. having all that information of, well, what products did really sell during that last period, having that data then push the marketing through there, I think it's really, really powerful. We're not leveraging that data yet, but I think the more we can leverage those datas and use that data for small business, the better it's going to be. We don't want this whole statistic of 50% of businesses fail. Like, we don't want that anymore. What we want is right technology, right information there so that they can thrive and then survive going forward. And then the cop-out reason, the third reason, is because it's going to be mandatory, like, unfortunately.
With
Like,
MTD.
MTD and all these other things that are coming in. Unfortunately, at some point, it's going to be forced. If you've VAT registered, you're already mandatory, have to use software, and MTD for it. So that's for your income tax coming soon. And that means that if you do tax returns, you're pretty much going to have to use software anyway. So yeah, that's a cop-out reason. But we don't want it to be mandatory. We want the benefits of doing it to push people to go over there.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much choice out there that if you don't get on with one, you can always give another one a try, provided you have someone to help you set it up. Because I know I'm absolutely useless trying to do it by myself.
Clearly there's a better one out there, but you can use anything you want.
It's difficult to know which one to name. It's just so ambiguous. It's too
obviously
subtle.
I would never condone one over the other at all.
No, absolutely not. As I said, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for everyone who has joined us and catches up at another point. Before we go, I do just have one announcement to make on behalf of Ashley. So he's obviously back with his regular live show next week. He's very excited for this particular guest. He's being joined by Oliver Yonchev. I will let him introduce that because he is so excited to have him joining him. Quite understandably, given the background that he's had.
Who's our guest next week?
An excellent question. Next week, we are being joined by the very lovely
Jodie Natasha.
That's
if you don't know what Jodie does, Jodie is going to be talking to us about human design and reading our charts. She's already provided Odessa and myself. So that's going to be quite interesting. I've already had a sneak peek at mine today, and I have questions in there, so that's going to be fun.
There's always going to be so many questions. Yeah, fantastic. Right, everybody, thank you so much. Have an enjoyable rest of the day and have a great weekend. We'll be back with you next week. Take care.
Thank you for having me on.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
No, thank you for joining us. Take care.